These guys could have stopped and done the right thing at any point in time. Now that it's affecting them and their livelihoods is the only time that they're deciding to, put their foot down. It seems that the entire Liberal caucus is finally feeling the buyer's remorse that the rest of Canada has been feeling for the last 9 years during Justin Trudeau's reign. The problem is, all of those Liberal MPs didn't bother to read the receipt when they made the deal with Justin Trudeau to take over the Liberal Party of Canada. No refunds, no exchanges, do not pass go, and do not collect $200. You wanted him, you are stuck with him until he decides to leave, or until your party suffers a disastrous election loss.
Let's take a look.
And joining me now is our political analyst, Laurie Turnbull, to talk more about that reflecting. There's probably a lot going on, Laurie. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Probably a lot of reflecting going on as we hear more and more MPs, Liberal MPs, turning on the Prime Minister.
For sure. I mean, this has been a long process where, every so often it seems there's somebody else who will put their name on it. At first, those in caucus who were pushing back on his leadership, it was kind of secretive. They weren't necessarily going up to the mic and saying it. But now, I think as it gets closer to the return of Parliament and as the runway to the next election gets shorter, perhaps the mindset is, if he's going to go, we've only got a finite amount of time to kind of put the pressure on him to do that. And so I think as they get into election readiness mode as well, right? Like as the party has to move toward making sure all their candidates are nominated, things like that, this last push to see whether there's any budging Trudeau for those who want him to go, we're seeing that happen now.
But what can they do? I mean, he must be hearing these voices. Is there anything else they can actually do to try and get him to go?
Well, this is it. I mean, it seems that there's quite a lot of concern in the caucus about whether he's going to go into the next election. Again, we've heard this a lot over the past number of months. There isn't the mechanism in the Liberal Party that there is in the Conservative Party. So they availed themselves of the Reform Act. And in that, using that mechanism, they ousted Erin O'Toole a few years ago and then had a leadership process that brought Pierre Poilievre in. But the Liberals didn't take advantage of that mechanism where the caucus can, with a 50% plus one vote, push the leader out and then replace with an interim leader. And so their options for actually kind of pushing him out the door are pretty limited. And so you see it happening kind of by 1,000 cuts instead, including the resignation from cabinet and the departure of Chrystia Freeland, which was a huge blow to Trudeau. In terms of what they can do, they can keep putting pressure on him. They can, to have these conversations in front of the media. They can have them in back rooms. I think, honestly, now that you can hear a bit more in terms of rumors of people putting together a leadership bid, or people are networking, people are putting some money together, that sort of thing, that might be the type of thing that puts a greater amount of pressure on him, because without there being somewhere else to go, it's hard, I think, for the party, and again, in the absence of this formal mechanism, it's hard to push one leader out when you're not sure who the next leader is going to be. It's hard to make that transfer. We might see more drastic measures. You can imagine such things as the MPs kind of stop voting in favor of the government and in Parliament. But frankly, how would they do that when there are no votes on legislation going through Parliament now? Like, I think, honestly, because Parliament is in the state that it's in, because this motion of privilege has taken over in that space and we don't see regular business happening in Parliament, because the opposition parties are now saying, we're all ready to defeat this government, because there's a movement afoot to do that in the Public Accounts Committee. I think, honestly, the runway for the Liberal caucus members might be up anyway, apart from making these pushes as they are now.
So this is, this seems to be just regular every day now that people are coming out from inside of the Liberal caucus and saying, "Oh yeah, Justin Trudeau needs to go. It's time to go. I've been advocating for this for a long time, so I'm a righteous person. I'm just saying it publicly now."
But you know what? I think to Canadians, it's too little too late. You guys were more than happy to support his disastrous policies for the last 9 years while it harmed all of us. And now that there's an election coming, possibly as soon as spring, but definitely no later than October, you guys are all panicking because now it's going to harm you. It's harming your chance of losing your seat. I mean, take a look at this. This is the map from back last election from 2021. You can see how red it is in Southern Ontario. And now look how blue it is. There's hardly any red seats left. And this is after the boundary change as well. So really, all these Liberals are going to be losing their seats. They're going to be losing their livelihoods. They're going to have to go back to the private sector. And what? It seems like they only care now that they're going to be affected.
So let's take a look at the letter that Calgary Skyview MP George Chahal heroically said and heroically sent to everybody. Dear colleagues, I write to you during the Christmas break as time is of the essence. I have spoken with Caucus colleagues and the President of the Liberal Party of Canada. Long ago, we lost the luxury of time or needless reflection. Over the last 6 months, I and others have made every effort to find an elegant way forward showing respect for history, the leader, process, and our caucus. It is unfortunate our efforts, the clear message delivered in multiple by-elections by Canadians, have not resonated. Our leadership is not hearing Canadians, and many Liberals are ringing the fire alarm. Over a year ago, Senator Darcy Down gave sage advice based on wisdom gained from decades of political experience. Earlier in the year, Ken MacDonald had the courage to speak up, and he was ostracized. 6 months ago, 8 of my colleagues joined me in asking for a national caucus meeting. I thank them for their confidence and integrity in standing up. 2 months ago, over 24 caucus members directly spoke truth to power and asked the Prime Minister to reflect. We spoke, but there has been no change. Last week, our colleague Chrystia Freeland resigned as Finance Minister / Deputy Prime Minister and released a letter of no confidence. More of our colleagues have now spoken out. Any rational individual in a position of leadership would resign. Any group of individuals providing advice based on data and logic would reach the same conclusion. Unfortunately, a small cabal have decided to pursue a reckless strategy of mutually assured political destruction. It is clear the Liberal Party of Canada is not their priority. We are a party of confederation. From Laurier to Trudeau, we have contributed to building this great country. The Liberal Party of Canada is not a movement beholden to any one individual. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau no longer has the support of Caucus, and to maintain some dignity, he should immediately tender his resignation. Caucus, working with the Liberal Party of Canada board, should start the immediate process of scheduling an expedited leadership process, which is transparent and democratic. It is an opportunity to create new energy, introduce new ideas, and test potential candidates. I and other caucus members do not support a secretive conclave where Caucus chooses the new leader. The Liberal caucus should elect an interim leader who can lead the government over the next 60 to 75 days. I strongly encourage the board to ratify this democratic selection. Prime Minister, thank you for your service, and I wish you the very best in your future endeavors. Unfortunately, it has come to this.
I'll tell you, I find this very interesting because in the province of Alberta, there are 34 federal seats currently. We are going to be getting some more, but there are 34, and only 2 of those seats are Liberal. One belongs to Chahal, and the other belongs to the other Randy.
So after George Chahal sent this letter, he also decided to send the president of the Liberal Party of Canada a letter as well, because he's, that worried about losing his seat. Sachet. Now, Sachet is the first name of the Liberal Party of Canada president, who is a volunteer, and the person's name is Sachet Mehra. Sachet, time is of the essence. Thank you for taking the time over the holidays to discuss the Liberal Party of Canada's strategy for a potential leadership race, assuming the Prime Minister resigns as leader in the near future. I appreciate your accessibility and transparency. I have had a chance to review the Constitution and bylaws of the Liberal Party of Canada and have received legal counsel as well. It seems clear that the Liberal Party of Canada board has the authority, subject to a significant majority of the LPC board being in favor, to vary the governing rules if political circumstances warrant. As we are in the final year prior to a fixed election date, in a minority situation where the other parties have indicated they may defeat the government, I would urge the LPC board to immediately plan for a leadership review, assumably, regardless of the Prime Minister's formal resignation. It is my view that it would be political negligence by the LPC board not to plan for the race. It is clear now the leader of the Liberal Party no longer has confidence of his parliamentary caucus and the vast majority of Canadians. On a final note, I appreciate the burden of responsibility on the members of the LPC board volunteers. I know from your comments you are mindful of the public scrutiny any leadership race might draw. I want to thank members of the board in advance for making sure we have a transparent, inclusive, and democratic process that Liberal supporters will enthusiastically embrace coast to coast to coast. With gratitude, George Chahal. So now George Chahal is basically saying, well, I reviewed the Constitution and you guys can just change the rules if you like and kind of deal with this. Well, we've reviewed the Constitution as well. So let's take a look at that, because this is what everybody is talking about, but not actually specifying where the issue is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the front page of the Constitution of the Liberal Party of Canada. Now, there's a specific section that we are most interested in. This would be Section 44. Section 44B is where we're most interested in. The leader ceases immediately to be the leader, aka of the Liberal Party of Canada, or a leadership trigger event when due to incapacity, the leader ceases to be recognized by the Governor General as the leader of the party in the House of Commons, which is unlikely to happen. 2, the leader dies.
Also unlikely to happen.
3, there are published in accordance with this Constitution the result of a leadership endorsement ballot in which the leader is not endorsed. Or 4, the National Board of Directors declares that the result of a leadership vote is invalid. Okay, so it seems like this is saying he either has to die, he has to resign, or the Governor General declares him not the leader anymore, or he's replaced by a leadership race. Well, when can a leadership race be held? Well, that's in number 47, leadership endorsement ballot.
The National Board is responsible to ensure that a ballot, referred to throughout this Constitution as the, quote, leadership endorsement ballot, end quote, in a form approved by the National Board of Directors, which permits the voter to indicate whether or not they are in favor of endorsing the leader, is voted on at or prior to the first national convention of the party held after each general election, in which the leader does not become or continue to be the prime minister, with sufficient time that the results may be announced at such national convention. So what does all that gobbledygook means? It means basically that after the first election loss at their first major convention, then they can pick a new leader.
Not before.
Right. Unless Trudeau steps down willingly, which, again, I personally don't think he's going to do. It's possible, but my gut is telling me he's going to stay on.
Well, and this is the thing. From what we heard and from what we've read, when the Liberal Party was in absolute obscurity, when Stephen Harper was in government, they were allegedly courting, love letter writing, in fact, begging Justin Trudeau to come and take over the Liberal Party. Now, one interesting thing happened, and Turnbull actually talked about it in that video. So, in around 2013, it was shortly before Trudeau announced his that he was going to be entering politics. The Liberal Party made an amendment to their constitution removing the ability for the party to actually remove the leader.
Now, we don't know for sure that this was at Trudeau's request, but the timing is awfully convenient. We've asked a few people that we know in Parliament and who have been in Parliament, and all we've heard is, well, there's been a lot of rumors, nobody knows for sure, but the timing's suspicious.
They also agree it's very, very convenient.
Right, that's the word, convenient.
Right. So you essentially tried to get this guy to take over the party. Allegedly, what seems to have happened is Trudeau said, fine, but I don't want you guys stabbing me in the back, so I don't want you to have the ability to actually remove me if things are getting tough. And so they said, fine, we'll alter the Constitution. And then all of a sudden, Justin Trudeau takes over as a Liberal Party, and then boom, they're stuck with him.
Right. Now they're reaping what they've sown. Back in 2013, even a little bit before that, the Liberal Party got completely annihilated. The NDP was the official opposition, and Stephen Harper had the majority in the House of Commons. So the Liberals were relegated to obscurity, really. And it seems like, we don't have proof again, but it seems like in order to court Justin Trudeau, these rules were changed. And they wanted Justin Trudeau because he had his daddy's famous name, that his dad was a famous politician, that they thought he would revive the party and lead them to greatness. And for a while, he did. And now everything's burning around them.
Well, and now you have Liberals begging the Liberal Party of Canada to literally change their own constitution so that they have the ability to have a leadership race now. Because the Constitution says you can't have a leadership race now. We will have a leadership race after
you all lose your seats.
Yeah, after you're all screwed. Right? After you're all screwed. And that's the problem.
You know what? I really don't feel bad. These guys have been voting against the best interests of Canadians for many, many years. They all voted in favor of carbon tax increases. They all voted in favor of these programs that drove this deficit up and up and up. I mean, these guys could have stopped and done the right thing at any point in time. Now that it's affecting them and their livelihoods is the only time that they're deciding to, put their foot down, try to change things?
Well, and they also voted to change the bail laws. So they're responsible for all of this crime that's going on. They're responsible for increasing immigration. They're responsible for all of it.
Well, they saw the prices in housing doubling, in some areas even tripling, and they were okay with it.
Yep.
Like, these guys have completely mismanaged absolutely everything that they could possibly do at the federal level. And they've also started sticking their noses in at the provincial level. And it's all been fine and dandy until it started to affect them.
And then they turn around and say, but we're also proud of everything we've quote unquote
accomplished. Built. Yeah.
So, but it's not just George Chahal. It's not just George Chahal, folks. There's more.
And there's more political turmoil for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The Atlantic Liberal Caucus is now calling on him to step down as party leader. MPs sent a letter to Trudeau following a caucus meeting Monday, asking him to resign. Mackenzie Gray is following developments in Ottawa. Mackenzie?
Well, and the Liberal caucus might have been inspired by the end of the Canada Post strike because they just can't seem to stop writing letters to the Prime Minister. And no, they are not pleasant Christmas cards. The latest group to publicly call for him to quit, the Atlantic Caucus. We reported last week they met to discuss Justin Trudeau's future, and Wayne Long, one of the most outspoken Liberals, has posted a letter that was sent to Trudeau after the meeting. Simply put, time is of the essence, and our caucus is of the view that it is not tenable for you to remain as leader, wrote Atlantic Caucus Chair Cody Blows. We're confident that you will accept our request and preserve your legacy. Issues with Atlantic MPs have dated back over a year, and Trudeau tried to smooth some of them over by taking off the carbon tax on home heating oil, which is widely used in Atlantic Canada, a move that was welcomed.
But ultimately, these types of announcements that are being made today is the prerogative of the Prime Minister. And Prime Minister, on behalf of our caucus, I want to say thank you for listening to our feedback, but also showing vision.
Global investors.
Turns out that vision might have been one of the death kneels of the Liberal government. It left a gaping hole in their signature policy, the carbon tax, which the Conservatives have exploited, now ahead in the polls by 25 points. And it's that gap with Pierre Poilievre that has Atlantic and Ontario MPs wanting Trudeau to leave, which, if you add them all up, Anne, now shows a a clear majority of Liberals telling Trudeau he has to quit.
And you may be wondering, well, how do they know so many are actually against this? Well, the Ontario caucus met recently as well, and there was, I think, 51 MPs. Not one was reported to have actually stood up and said, I support the Prime Minister.
Well, that's their own fault. I mean, again, if you look at the map of the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, it's all blue now, or it's going to be blue in the next election if these numbers stick. That's going to be terrifying for them, especially because they no longer have the protection of the NDP. So really, an election could be called any day.
Right. So, you know, the fact that they are writing to anyone that may listen, they're even writing to the Liberal Party Canada, they're not sure whether Justin Trudeau will step down or not. And this is the thing, right? Because you have, even by Chahal's admission, you have people around him that are saying, no, you can do it. You can, like, it's like a team of Rob Schneiders that are just constantly telling him, don't listen to anybody else, man, you can do it. So this is what you have. And despite the rest of the country saying, dude, get out. He's listening to his buddies. He's listening to his wedding party. And that's the only people that he seems to be listening to.
Well, and there's people we know in real life who are more than willing to vote Liberal if Justin Trudeau steps down. And I know they are not the only ones. You know, there must be millions of Canadians across the country who are like, well, I would vote Liberal, but I'm tired of Trudeau. I want him gone. So,
which, you know, we still don't understand because the policies remain. And it's like, well, is it what, just replacing the guy and the policies are all fine? Like, come on.
But the party is fractured, and just removing Justin Trudeau is not going to fix that. It's not going to be a quick fix. I believe that the Liberal Party is going to go through many leaders before they are elected into government again. It's going to take a lot of work to fix that party because it is so heavily tied to Justin Trudeau. But the point being, they could get a lot more votes, and that may translate to additional seats if Justin Trudeau was not at the helm.
Well, one thing for sure, we know that the Liberal Party isn't happy with him. Canadians aren't happy with him. And I guarantee you, he is not about to have a happy new year.